Welcome to Treaty Talk, episode 142. Myself, Jack Neville, and Matt O'Callaghan of the Weekly Observer and Vale Star. It's another busy weekend of Limerick GAA action. We have the Limerick footballers in Munster Football Championship action against Waterford. We have the Limerick Camogie side in a Munster semi-final. We also have the under 16s from last weekend to look back on, minor Camogie this weekend to look forward to, and a couple of minor football finals from 2020 to look forward to. So do stay tuned for all that.
The impression of the game you get out of it, what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word court today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it hard. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
I suppose the highlight of the weekend, Matt, for many people will be return to the Munster Championship, whether it's football or hurling, depending on which coach you prefer. But for the Limerick faithful, it'll be the football this weekend. And I suppose after last year's Munster Championship that was filled with what-ifs, the Limerick footballers are back. They have a chance to avenge that loss to Tipperary last year. They play Waterford tomorrow in the Gaelic grounds at 3 o'clock. That game is live on GAA Go, and there'll be 200 lucky supporters in there, and we'll touch on that in a while. But we've seen the team, Matt, for the Waterford game. I suppose Cian Sheehan is the only change coming in for Tommy Griffin. Tommy Griffin cried off with injury against Derry. So just looking at the 15 that Billy selected, there's no real surprise that team seems to be very settled at this stage.
It is, Jack, but before I go to it, just looking at your introductory clip there, Kieran Carey must have been listening to the Dads and Lads slot that we had last week. Because he made his comeback for Patrick Swell over the weekend. So there's hope for us still, Jack. But sometimes I often meant to refer to it about that clip. Kieran Carey's point was a point for the ages. But Shawnee Buckley's point in the football game was up there with the best that has been scored in football, because none other than Tomas O'Shea was taken, was the defender in question. So the O'Sheas weren't given away points, easy or otherwise. So, but certainly it was a fantastic slot of play there by Shawnee Buckley, and I think we should acknowledge it. Yeah, I suppose Billy Lee's team, Jack, in answer to your question, is basically along the lines in which we expected, and I suppose it is consistent with the sides that he sent out in the league, and like who stood him in good stead during the league. Like he's had 4 good league games behind him, and 2 wins, 2 draws, got into the semi-final, had a shot at promotion, came up a bit short against Derry, but not as short as Offaly came up in the final last weekend. So I suppose that puts where Limerick are at into context. So it is basically, were we to second guess the team, I suspect we would have guessed possibly 12, 13, possibly even 14 of them that he has named. Now there are 3, by my reckoning, there are 3 championship newcomers. Well, 3 players getting their first starts: Mike Donovan of Galbally, Bob Childs of Galtee Gales, and Robbie Burke of Adair. Now Robbie Burke is going into a full forward line that looks a very, very potent full forward line. He's going in there with Danny Neville and with his brother Hugh. And all 3 have a reputation of being very, very good finishers. So, like, Limerick's tactic from the start will be to get as much ball into those three and get them on the ball as quickly as is possible.
Yeah, and you mentioned the three debutants, but we'd say we played Waterford last year at the same stage, quarter-final, and that's a game we'll look to in a minute. But there's 5 changes to that team. You've mentioned Michael Donovan, you've mentioned Robbie Childs, and you've mentioned Robbie Burke. But you also have Cian Sheehan and Danny Neville come into that side from last year. It's probably a stronger team than last year, and the players around them are more settled. So you'll be hoping that it'll be a repeat of last year's performance where they won 2-14-9.
Yeah, you would be hoping, and it is him because like last year, like Danny Neville was an absolute huge loss last year. Danny Neville was missing through injury last year, and Cian Sheehan was only coming back. He had only rejoined the squad after being abroad for a while, and you know, the game probably came too soon for him. So I think it's a stronger team, Jack. I think very few will argue with that because Bob Childs, Mike Donovan, and Robbie Burke, they have nailed down their places against the incumbents that were there. So and Billy is picking the players that obviously what he sees in training and what he has seen in matches, but he's picking the in-form players. And Jack, it is very hard to argue with any part of that selection because, like, look at their record this year. It stands up. All right, you can say, you know, what did they win? Like, they achieved their first goal this year, Jack. Limerick's first goal coming into the league in 2021 had to be consolidation and survival. Let's call a spade a spade. You were going into a division that boasted 2 provincial champions from 2020, Cavan and Tipperary. And like, you know, survival. You were surviving in exalted company. All right, it was divided, it was truncated, it was divided into 2 groups. But the two provincial champions will play their trade in Division 4 next year. So, like, to get 2 wins out of 3 and to run Derry so closely, I think was a fantastic achievement. It certainly, and you will remember me talking with Billy during the week, and he mentioning that he didn't enjoy the campaign as much as maybe he normally would have had, and that's because, and it's easy to see where he's coming from because he brought in a number of new players. He wasn't able to give them game time. Now, had we been in Division 4, he possibly would have to be, give him game time. But it was all shoulders to the wheel from the get-go this time because you had to survive in Division 3. That was a baseline. And normally when new players come in, they get their first run out in the McGrath Cup. There was no McGrath Cup this year. So, like, I can see where he mightn't have enjoyed the league campaign, although he will have enjoyed the performances. But sort of, you bring in new players, and you're not able to give them the opportunity, first of all, that they deserve, and secondly, the opportunity that you want them to give, because you want to give them because that's why you brought them in the first place. Is to give them a chance and see what they can do in a competitive setting. So, I think in the circumstances, Limerick football, Billy and his backroom team, and the players, they have done very, very well. And now I think we'll be facing a better Waterford team. No doubt about that. Shane Ronan has a very, very, very impressive CV as Waterford manager. I was surprised when I heard that he was going there, but then I wasn't, because his father is a Waterford man, a Waterford native. But certainly, and it didn't start off that terrible well for Shane and his team. They suffered a heavy defeat to Carlow in the first round of the league, but went to Wexford in round 2 and scored a big win and pushed Antrim in the semi-final, and we could have been talking about a game on tomorrow with 2 Division 3 sides in 2022, but we're not. They're back down in Division 4 for next year. But Billy was at pains during the week to stress that we underestimate Waterford at our peril, and I agree with him.
Yeah, it would be stupid to underestimate Waterford, and I suppose last year, despite the fact that Limerick won Division 4, and that Waterford obviously didn't win Division 4, that Limerick were favourites, but Limerick will be huge favourites this weekend. Does that bring a different pressure for this Limerick side that probably won't have had that favourites tag in a championship game for a good number of years?
No, they will not, although they did have it to a degree last year, Jack.
Yeah, to a degree, but not as much.
They were not as much, no. They were coming off after being a great win in Sligo, which saw them crowned as Division 4 champions. And, they were there for a fall, if you like, last year, because it was sort of anticlimactic. You had just won the league, and here you were tossed straight into the championship. And I think there is pressure on him in so far as that there is the pressure of favouritism on him, in that they're probably overwhelming favourites going into the game tomorrow, and it will depend on how they react to that. Now we know without question how they react when their backs are to the wall. And it's seldom enough in Limerick football that a Limerick football team goes in such overwhelming favourites now. But that is the situation they are. But tomorrow. But I'm sure that Billy and his management team will have kept the lads well grounded during the week, and will have focused on ensuring that all systems go come 3:00 tomorrow.
Yeah, and talking to Billy during the week, and that interview is available on all our social channels, he certainly isn't taking this game for granted. But just coming away from this side of the draw for a second, obviously on the other side you've Kerry and Clare, and Clare were hugely impressive in the league, but can you see anything other than their season come to an end tomorrow in Fitzgerald Park?
I can't, because however impressive Clare were in Division 2, Kerry were equally impressive in Division 1. And the only thing I'm a bit disappointed about is that there wasn't a final in Division 1.
Yeah.
And the chickens may come home to roost finally after 6 years. So, no, the answer is a simple answer. No, I can't see it. I can see Clare being plucky, being gritty, being competitive. But I cannot see. You see, they're facing a Kerry team that will be uppermost in their mind what happened against Cork last year, and the fallout from it, which has continued practically. I had some of the fallout from it as late as 2 weeks ago. And blame being attributed here, there, and everywhere, and that is going to be uppermost in Kerry minds, and I cannot see Clare doing it, but I can see him being competitive, testing Kerry maybe for 40-50 minutes, but at the end of the day, I think it's a Kerry, it's a Kerry Tipperary semi-final, and before you ask me, it's a Limerick Cork semi-final.
You read my mind there. And just finally, on the Waterford game, will there be any hang-up over the Tipperary game last year? I know there's been a league since, but you can't beat the championship, and Limerick were the wit of a post away from Munster final. Will that be playing on the minds at all with the lads?
I don't think so. They've probably got rid of that, Jack. And I'll tell you why they probably have got rid of it. Is they have played Tipperary in the league and beaten them, and that will probably have got the hangover of that out of the system. They might be slightly conscious of it, and I think we spoke in advance of the Tipperary game about that it would be in the heads no matter what you do to get it out of it. Look, a lot of water has flown under the bridge since, Jack, in terms, and you're talking about two different animals when you're talking about Limerick football and Kerry football. Like, Kerry football is all geared for the All-Ireland. And dare I say it, what happens in the league is incidental. You know, we do not have the same level of ambition for obvious reasons. So, therefore, I think whilst Kerry will continue to hurt over the Cork game until they get a Munster final and beat Cork probably, I think we have probably the Tipperary defeat and the manner of the Tipperary defeat in the semi-final last year out of our system, for the simple reason that we have already had a win over Tipperary in the league.
Yeah, and if we can get the win at the weekend, which, look, we're both favouring Limerick, it'll be 3 successive years with a Munster Championship win, and after 7 long years without, like, it's just another sign of the progress for Billy Lee and his side.
It is, absolutely. It is measurable progress, and I'll always remember an interview that Billy gave, and I've referenced this on a number of times, at the very outset of last year's league campaign, where he spoke about what he would consider progress in 2020 now, and he was saying to be competitive in Division 4, to be up or thereabouts, being in the hunt for promotion. And we all know that he went one better. 5 straight wins out of 7, crowned league champions. You cannot argue with that. So, and you saw the performance in the championship last year, and all the time, Jack, we were wondering. Go back to the McGrath Cup. We were wondering, would the form in the McGrath Cup translate into the league? An emphatic yes. Would the league form translate into the championship? An emphatic yes. Then another big hump, a break of 5 months, and could they translate the form of 2020 into 2021? Another emphatic yes. So let's hope it's another yes this year in the championship.
Yeah, let's hope. We're both confident of a win tomorrow in the Gaelic Crowns for Limerick. That'll see him into a Munster semi-final. I suppose, digressing slightly from that game, from the game itself, we'll have fans back in the Gaelic Crowns for the first time since March 7th, 2020, when the hurlers played there. Correct me if I'm wrong. We probably had some for club games last year, but the first inter-county game. But 200 in a 48,000 capacity stadium, it's not enough, really, Matt, is it?
No, I think it's a very, very, very cautious experiment, Jack, if I'm honest. A very, very cautious experiment. But look, we all the time we have to be mindful of public health guidelines. None of us want a repeat of the first 4 months of this year or the back end of last year when games were suddenly suspended. And again, if you go back further to the outset of this pandemic, like, we're in terms of the pandemic, Jack, we are in a good place in that numbers are falling, hospital numbers are falling, ICU are falling, and our vaccination rollout is continuing, and we're more and more people now. We're heading for 40% of the population being totally vaccinated. We're heading for 70% of the population having got their first dose. Like, we're tantalizingly close to what our goal is in terms of vaccination and the protection of the people. So I can understand. I can understand the need for caution. But having said that, 248-seater stadium is that is, in my view, carrying caution a little bit too far. Like, I would not, I'd be quite happy with 1,000 people allowed in there. You'd still be only looking at what would you be looking at, Jack? You'd be only looking at 5%.
Yeah,
it's
less even. It's a logistical nightmare for the people involved giving out tickets. I know some people, for families of players and things, that they've only one ticket between 2 parents and things. And I know, as you said, public health has to come into it, but the local club games in any club ground can take 100. If they can take 100 with no stand or anything like that, why can't Gaelic grounds take a lot more than that? But even looking forward to next week, and we've the hurlers back, and theirs is a trial event, and it's only less than 2,500 people. That's less than 5% of Semple Stadium. As a trial event, again, you'd like to see that bit more, even 5, and make it 10% of the sound of the stadium, or even 10% of the stadium would still only be 10,000, or 5,000 even. Like, you're looking for that bit more for a trial event, I think.
I think you would be looking to get a representative trial. Like, sure, the way it is at the moment, like with such a paltry number of tickets, and I know tickets is always a huge issue and causes more rows in clubs, and this is only going to fester more rows in clubs, and even fester domestic rows for that matter, where parents get one ticket between them. I think that's comical, and it really is pushing it too far. I honestly think. But look, I suppose we will. If you look at the other side of the coin, Jack, if you were talking about this now in January, February, or March, we'd have taken anything.
True.
We'd have taken anything, I suppose. And to put it into context, and like it economically, it has been a disaster for the country. And like, I can understand government and people in authority wanting to be as cautious as they are. So, look, there are arguments both ways, but I think that 200 people in Limerick tomorrow, far too little. I think that could be stretched to 1,000 at least. I think the game in Thurles could be stretched to 5,000. But it is what it is, Jack. We've got to live with it. If it is a success, and I have no doubt it will be a success, at the way the thing is going, like there is provision in the guidelines that it will be increased and enhanced from week to week.
Yeah, and it should be a success with that. And look, you're better off to be cautious at the start, and it works, than to be over optimistic and then we're back a few weeks. But for people that there's obviously going to be thousands of people disappointed. They can see the Limerick games. All those Limerick games will be available to watch, whether it be on RT or TG or tomorrow's game is on GA Go. I would definitely encourage people to get out and see their local clubs during the week. You'll see faces you probably haven't seen in a long time. There's a great buzz around. I know from my experience at Ballysteen and Skeeton, like there's a great experience at the local club game. So if you can't attend your county game, go to your club games. Be conscious of social distancing and adhere to the rules. But don't be saying I'm missing out on Limerick, so I'm seeing no one. Go out and see your clubs is what I'd be saying to people. And
I couldn't agree more, and everybody should go out and see Ballysteen because Jack is playing with him again. It's great to see the Jack come back. But
Junior B's, if you want to see that.
There's such a plethora of games, Jack. Tis unbelievable. Like it was a very ambitious league program, but by God, an awful lot of it has been run off. And being run off very, very smoothly. There are very, very few hitches. Like you see the list of games that are down for each of the last couple of weeks and will be for the next 2 weeks. It's phenomenal. It must be a logistical nightmare for the administrators in the county board, and it's particularly a logistical nightmare for our referees, who have to try and make two of themselves and nearly have to bilocate. And you throw in the underage games as well. You throw in Camogie and ladies football. Like the call on referees' time at the moment is just simply unbelievable. And we can't have games without him, Jack. And at the risk of their saying O'Callaghan is ranting again, like that's why I despise the abuse that some of our referees get from time to time in games. There is absolutely no place for it. They are the heroes of our games because we cannot have games without them.
Yeah.
And I have yet in all my years to see a referee going out to do any team. The referees go out to do the best job they possibly can. They're all human. They'll all make mistakes. They'll be the first to put their hands up and say, right, got that wrong. But like, they're unsung heroes in this in this particular incident because I just don't know how they're covering all the games that we have. Some of them are out 3, 4, and 5 nights a week.
Yeah, it's a credit to referees because, as you said, there'll be no games without them. But before we move away from the football completely, there are 2 county finals, another 2020 finals to be played this evening. Starting with the Premier Minor final between Father Casey's and Newcastle. That's on at 7 o'clock in the Gaelic grounds. 200 allowed at that game. Look, I don't know what the stories of parents and stuff, but anyways, the game and its merits. Father Casey's are going for 3 in a row, and you said to me off air it's an 8th final in 10 years. Are you backing the Abbeyfield side, or would you be leaning towards Newcastle?
In the group stage, Jack, there were 6 teams in the A competition. In the group stage, they both won 4 games. Father Casey's beat Newcastle West, and Galbally in turn beat Father Casey's. So that's where they're coming into it. A bit of a background to it is that it's Father Casey's 8th final in 10 years, and they're going for their 6th title. And coincidentally, the 2 they have lost them to Newcastle West. In 2013, when Father Casey's, who are going for 3 in a row tonight, were going for a 3 in a row back then, Newcastle West stopped them, and they also stopped them in 2015. Now, that was the famous day in Kilmallock when Newcastle West won a fantastic senior and minor double in the Limerick Championship. And like Father Casey's, they are the specialists of this competition. Like now, Newcastle West, in recent weeks, they have competed in the outstanding games of the 2020 Premier Under-16 Hurling and Under-16 Football Championships. Now, they won the hurling. They won the hurling final, their first time ever winning it. And, of course, it will be their last time winning it because it will become Under-17. They beat Munley in the final. They lost to Galway in the football. But what I'm saying is that there will be players from those teams coming through. But if you look at Father Casey's, at a glance, Father Casey's have Shane O'Connell, Sean Kilbridge, Eli O'Riordan, all who played senior football with Father Casey's last year. They have players that have been on the county minor team for 3 years, 2019, 2020, and are on the current panel. Like they have a stellar lineup. But it appears to me when these 2 sides meet, that form tends to go out the window. I'm reluctant to call it, but if you force me, which I know you're going to, I'm going to go for Father Casey's just to edge it.
I'm glad you didn't make me ask you again, that you just went down and said Father Casey's. But it's an incredible achievement from Father Casey's to be so consistent in the Premier Minor Championship. But as you said, it kind of seems that Newcastle kind of have their number at this grade, which I suppose from year to year, it's a different set of players. But anyways, that game is 7 o'clock tonight in the Gaelic grounds. Just as you mentioned, the likes of Lyra Reardon and St. Kilbridge, their Limerick minor team for 2021 was announced during the week. Jerry Sullivan named a 34-man panel. They're out against Tipperary on the 8th or the 19th of July in Semple Stadium in the Munster semi-final. Just to digress again from that, we have the A final in the minor grade tonight as well in Bruff. Adair versus South Liberties, Recora Manister. I suppose the last time we saw these teams was the back end of September. But look, in a one-off final, and I know I asked you to call the Newcastle Casey's game, but in a one-off final that we haven't seen the teams play in 8 months, very hard to call.
Very hard to call, Jack. But whoever wins this evening, it's going to complete as an absolutely smashing 2020 for them. Were it there to win, they'll have a county senior and minor A double. were Cricora Munster to win. They'll have a County Junior A and County Minor A double. So whoever prevails, it's going to be a fantastic. It's going to be a fantastic evening. Now, all the pointers in this particular final would point towards a dare. They were quite impressive through the group stages, and football in a dare is on an all-time high, and not only would it be a football double for them, it would also be a minor A double for them, because they've won the minor A hurling championship as well. So, like, one way or the other, if a dare win, which I think they will, it's going to be a fantastic year. But you're right, finals are one off. Nobody has seen either of these teams for 8 months. I think heading into the concluding stages, the knockout stages of the championship, few people would have picked Cricora Munster as likely Junior A winners. They won the competition. Now they're tied. They're joined with South Liberties in this, and they may have a trick up their sleeve. A final is a final. 60 minutes inside the white lines. Anything can happen, but from this remove, I think it's a dare.
Yeah, but as you said, like, it'll cap off a great year for whichever side, and at the end of the day, it's great for these lads. Minor is a very important age group that they actually have the chance to play these competitions that would have been stopped all of a sudden twice last year. That it's just coming to fruition. It's coming to conclusion, and best luck to the 4 sides in action tonight, and I'm sure we'll see more of them throughout the year. It's
fantastic, Jack, for that age group, because they've been through such trauma because of the pandemic, and it has been well flagged, the uncertainty about the leaving certificate for 2 years, having no schools competition, having their club competitions being disrupted. Like, they've really got the rough end of the stick with the pandemic. So it's fantastic to see that they'll get their opportunity this evening to play their finals.
Yeah, and best luck to the 4 sides in action.
Best of luck to all 4, and I've no doubt they're going to serve up 2 great games.
Yeah, and as I said, if you're from the area, if you can get your hand on a ticket or however it's going to work, definitely go out and see these young lads in action. I suppose that's a half an hour of football talk, and it's well deserved with Limerick football on the rise. But we'll move on to Camogie, and we have a Munster semi-final for the Limerick senior Camogie side. They play Waterford in Waterford at 7:15 tomorrow evening on Saturday. They got there by virtue of a 2-11 to 1-9 win over Clare. It probably wasn't as comprehensive as the league win over Clare, but it's very hard to beat a team twice in one season. So it was job done for Pat Ryan last weekend.
Yeah, job done. And, it was a very, very tricky tie for the simple reason that, for 2 reasons, really. For the reason you've just said, beating the same team twice. And secondly, Limerick were coming off a high after the great performance against Kilkenny, and the questions, could they repeat it? Now, I was out at the game, Jack, and Limerick got the worst possible start. They conceded a goal, which I suppose Pat Ryan would even though I spoke to him afterwards, I didn't speak to him about the goal, but I think he would consider that was a sloppy concession of a goal. But it appeared at the time that it was a blow, and that maybe the worst fears were unfolding. But of course, when you get a goal after 3 minutes, the opposition have a long time to come back. But Limerick didn't take that long to come back. They took 2 minutes to come back, and Megan O'Mara put in a delightful ball, which Anya Cunningham he took possession of and buried it in the net. And now Limerick were with the breeze in the first half, and they were really struggling, Jack. In the first 15 minutes, they were struggling to get in front even, and it was level heading into the water break when just before the break, Limerick got a free. I'd say it was good 70 metres out. Quiva Costello came out now, and she lobbed it into the area. It was an absolute delightful ball, a delightful delivery in that it created mayhem in the Clare defence. One of those balls that's just impossible to defend, and it proved to be just that. It nestled in the net, and it certainly gave Limerick a bit of latitude going in at into the water break, and they subsequently went in at halftime. I think it was 4 points up, but in the second half, Jack, a 5 points win for Limerick does not mirror the superiority that Limerick showed in the second half. When they were confronted with the elements, now the elements weren't a major factor, but I thought it was a very, very competent performance by Limerick. Like the defence was absolutely immense, Jack. Now Pat Ryan has slightly readjusted the defence this year. Like Mairead Ryan has been moved to the half-back line, and Roisin Ambrose has been moved back into cornerback, where I thought she was very good on Saturday. But Niamh Ryan at left half-back was absolutely outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. With a fantastic performance from Karen O'Leary at the centre of the field. And then up front, with players that were picking off their scores, Caoimhe Lyons got her score, Debbie Murphy got her score, Anya Cunningham got her goal, but the main scoring threat came from Caoimhe Costello, and she got 2-6 against them down in Father McNamara Park, and she got 1-8 last Saturday, 1-7 of which she got from frees. Now she was a huge threat, but Jack, she was so well policed that she got absolutely no space whatsoever to work on. Rebecca DeLee, after all her injury woes of last year, is really getting back into it again. So there are a lot of positives there. Going into the Waterford game, and going into the forthcoming championship, where, as we've already said, they're drawn with Tipperary, Wexford, and Offaly, and like you would expect that on the type of form that I've seen. And I've seen them 3 or 4 times already this year, that you expect that they stand a decent chance of emerging from that group. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Tomorrow evening they face Waterford in Walsh Park in the semi-final of the league, and it has been anything but a successful season for Waterford. Probably a season from hell in that they have been relegated for the first time in 6 seasons. After 6 seasons in the top flight, they were relegated when they were beaten by Dublin, who are managed by our own Adrian O'Sullivan from St. Kieran's last week by a point. So they will be playing their trade at in Division 2 next year. So, but having said that, Waterford are quite a competent side, and they have some very, very, very useful players, and you needn't look beyond the scoring machine that is Bet Carton, and like it's a difficult task. Now it will depend on how Waterford approach the game, whether they will be wallowing in their woes of relegation, or whether they will see this as an opportunity to get back on track. Either way, it's going to be very, very tight. I'm going for Limerick because I think the momentum is with them. And going into the championship, I think it would be an absolute ideal boost for Limerick to get an opportunity to get to a Munster final and a shot against Tipperary or Cork in the final. I think that they're quite capable of doing it, but it's going to be far from easy, Jack. And it will call for a performance better than last Saturday, and something akin to the performance against Kilkenny.
Yeah, and as you said there, it'll be very important not only to get the win to keep momentum going, but to get a chance to play Cork or Tipperary, because we saw how good they could be against Kilkenny, and I suppose against Galway, if you looked at the scoreline, you'd say it was a big beating, but that day probably just missed chances and things. So another chance, hopefully, for Limerick to test themselves against the best.
Yeah, another chance. Yeah, coming into the league, you would have said that Waterford were a level above us, possibly. I'm not so sure now as to what has transpired since, but I'm cautiously going for a Limerick victory in it, and it would, in terms of preparation for Pat Ryan and his team, there's no better preparation than this game, and to get the opportunity to play in a Munster final. And it would be a huge fillip for the girls, and like it would confirm that their form against Kilkenny on the day was no fluke, and we've seen that Kilkenny have subsequently gone on to win the league. So, I'm quite hopeful for tomorrow evening.
Yeah, I wouldn't give a cautious vote. I'd give a strong vote to Limerick. I just talking to a few inside. There seems to be a good buzz in the camp. Watford are probably at the other end just for this year alone. I just think Limerick can build on another win. I suppose for Pat Ryan, it was a disappointing weekend in a way that his junior side lost to Kerry 16 points to 1-6 in Fedamore. Probably shouldn't be facing Kerry, but beside the point, it was a good performance from the junior side that never really gave up against a team that were competing in Division 2 of the league, and they'll be competing in the Intermediate Championship.
I have a beef about this, Jack. You'll probably say I have a beef about most things. But I have a particular beef about this one. Can somebody explain to me why Kerry play in Division 2 of the National Camogie League, why they play in the All-Ireland Intermediate Championship, and lo and behold, how they can regrade themselves to junior in the Munster Camogie Championship. I'm really, really annoyed about that, I have to say. Now, they beat Limerick 16 points to 1-6. They're playing Cork tomorrow in the semi-final in Lixnaw. It's Cork's third team. Cork's third team, mind you. When they played Cork in the league, they played Cork's intermediate team. But this is Cork's third team. It's Cork's junior team. When they've entered into the proper spirit of the competition and are fielding their junior team in it. So having that rant out of the way, Limerick pushed them hard and pushed them very, very hard, even though they were intermediate. And Pat Ryan will probably be disappointed that his side didn't get over the line in this one. But I suppose Kerry drew away really in the second half, and Patrice Digan scored for fun, ended up scoring 12 points, all bar one or two, I think, from frees. So that I wasn't at the game, and so the information that I have is second hand. So that it obviously was that Kerry were exerting pressure and showing their superiority and their experience at this level. Of course, it was a repeat of the 2019 All-Ireland final. And Kerry welcomed back Sarah Murphy, who's a big player for him, is their centre-back, who before the 2019 All-Ireland final had spent a year playing with Newcastle West, Camogie. But it's disappointing to go out of it. It's a very creditable performance that they put up against Kerry, but disappointing to go out in the circumstances in which they did.
Yeah, but definitely a feature of the Camogie side this year is to go out battling, and that's something that they definitely did, and it'll be something that they can bring into the All-Ireland Championship, which will be the main focus now. They'll be operating in the Premier or Junior All-Ireland Championship. I suppose last weekend,
but lo and behold, that's not without its flaws either, Jack. And the Junior Championship isn't without its flaws, but there are three groups in it, and last year's champions, how they contrived to stay down junior after winning the Junior Championship, I don't know, Armagh, but they did. And Wexford, who came down from intermediate last year because the seniors had come down from senior to intermediate. thankfully anyway, the draw threw them together. The randomness of the draw threw them together in the one group with two coming out. They're likely to come out. They're going to be playing Waterford. Now Limerick have drawn the group with three Ulster teams, with Cavan, Antrim, and Down. So there's going to be a lot of travelling, Jack. No. I can't get a fix on whether these games are home and away or whether they're at neutral venues or what the story is. But there's going to be long trips anyway for the Junior Championship. But Pat Ryan, he'd be disappointed like that he didn't get a run in the Munster Championship, because it would have been the ideal filler in terms of preparation.
Yeah, it would. But look, they went out fighting as they've done all year, and it's a good sign before the championship, I suppose. I
don't like losing, Jack.
No, I don't think anyone likes losing, but you're better off to go out in what I suppose.
Don't like Limerick losing anyway, in particular.
Yeah, you're true. But I suppose for the under-16 side last weekend, there was a positive. They beat Clare 12-4 in a must-win game after losing to Galway in the opener, and now they wait the winner of Galway and Clare to see how they'll be fixed. Obviously, a Galway win will put Limerick through. A Clare win will bring it down to scoring difference. But it was good for the under-16s to get that win after, I suppose, a disappointing loss to Galway in the opening weekend.
Yeah, it was. And it was a very competent win, Jack, because there's a stick-out statistic in it, in that Clare failed to score from play during the entire 60-odd minutes. And you must remember, Jack, that this is under 16A, and I talking with the manager Paul Neenan after the game, and just put that very point to him, and he said that he's been with him from.
We've lost Matt for a second. I suppose that under 16s, he's just making the point that they're in the A grade, which is a serious achievement for any Limerick side, but especially Camogie, which is building in recent years. We also have a minor game, and I'm sure Matt will look forward to that. But the minors are playing Tipperary in the Munster Minor Championship. I have Matt coming back to me here now. How are you, Matt? I was just furthering your point there about
Gremlins and Barrysteen.
I was just furthering your point there about competing in the minor A championship.
About Paul Neenan, and he was saying right, he had him at under 14 and up along, and that he was absolutely, he said, convinced that they were of a better standard, and that they give A crack, and they sort of went up this year, and in many ways he was vindicated. I thought it was a very, very competent performance. He had a good spread of scores. Now, Anya O'Leary at the centre field, she's from the Blackrock FN club. She was excellent from frees. She ended up with 6 points. But the rest of the scores came from, all over the place. And there was a couple of subs who came on. And Ciara McAuliffe came on from Newcastle West. Amy O'Halloran from Mungret came on. Anya Cleary from Bruff all came on and all scored, which was very encouraging. But looking at the outstanding statistic that Clare failed to score, they have a very, very strong defence. All right, you can say they conceded 3-16 against Galway, but that was the first day out. And Galway would tend to be one of the better teams. But Galway and Cork at this level tend to be up there on a pedestal of their own and on a level of their own, with the others trying to close the gap. But the defence was, there was Amy Mullins was cornerback from Adair, was absolutely outstanding. Lucy O'Brien from Newcastle West at centre back, and at full back was a very, very interesting choice, an absolutely outstanding full back, Sophia McDonough, who plays her club Camogie with Granagh Ballingarry, but he's from Brewery and is the daughter of Stephen McDonough, the former Limerick player, and of course is the niece of Aoife Sheehan and Vera Sheehan of Camogie fame. So she didn't pick it up off the street. Absolutely outstanding at fullback. But the defence as a unit, Jack, was very, very, very encouraging, and they made it very, very difficult and very, very disciplined as well, because 2 of the frees that Eva Cahill got for Clare were from distance, which means that close to the scoring range, that they were not committing fouls. So it was a very, very encouraging performance. Paul Nealon was absolutely delighted with the performance, and so will he may and his backroom team of Tom Duggan and Tony Dunn. They've done a very, very good job with him. And going forward into the future, Jack, it's very, very important for Limerick Camogie that the girls are grounded at this level. I think it was an inspired choice on their part, and to go up into A. And there's no way whatsoever than to benchmark where your Camogie is at or where your team is at than playing the best. And that's what they're doing. Now, just the permutations of it, which you touched on at the outset, a win or a draw for Galway tomorrow will put Limerick into the quarter final. A defeat for Galway, unfortunately, will put Limerick out on scoring difference.
Yeah. That's the permutations for the under-16s, who obviously aren't in action this weekend. One team that are in action this weekend is the minors, and you spoke about building for the future, and the minor team has something which has proved really fruitful in recent years. Just looking at that junior side now, and even the senior side a few years ago, the minor has really been building in Limerick. They play Tipperary on Monday evening in the Munster Minor Championship in Fedamore. I suppose this grade is all about just for the future, really, and giving the girls a chance to play for their county.
It is, Jack. Yeah, and I'll be brutally honest about it. I know very little about him this year yet. This will be their first serious competitive game. I'm hoping to try and get out to it. But it's hugely important. It's only 2 years ago since we contested an All-Ireland B final. And a lot of those players have come through to the junior now. And I'm talking about the like of Ailbhe Larkin, I'm talking about Anna Harrington, I'm talking, of course, about Michelle and Noel Curtin, who are all part of that squad, and who lost to Laois after a replay in 2019 All-Ireland Junior B final above Anina. So it's a hugely important grade. And certainly, I will be more competent to speak about it next week. And Tipperary at minor level have been quite good in recent years. A lot of work is going into Camogie and Tipperary, and particularly at underage level. So it's going to be a real test of Limerick, and I'm hoping to get out to it and said on Monday evening, and looking forward to it. Yeah,
best luck to the minors, and obviously the seniors in action as well. And as we said, the Limerick football seniors. I suppose before we finish up, Matt, and it's a game we look forward to in more detail next week, but we have a fixture confirmation for the minor All-Ireland semi-final from 2020. Darren Mullins' side will take on Galway next Friday in Cusack Park at 7:30. That game is on TG Carr. And I suppose one thing that is for sure is that they've a date to look forward to now. And I suppose they had that date, but they have the fixture, they have everything confirmed. It's all steam ahead now for Cusack Park next Friday for Darren Mullins' side.
Yeah, and I think they will be extremely happy to have absolute clarity on it. Dermot Mullins, for two reasons. First of all, it's unfinished business from last year, and as you know, he has taken over the Limerick under-20 team, and for this year, and he's sort of trying to juggle his time between both of them. And I suppose that another relieved man will be Kevin O'Hagan in Mungret, because he has taken over from Dermot Mullins as minor manager, and at least he has clarity now as he prepares his panel for the 2021 championship for the end of the month. But we hope, of course, that they won't be available to Kevin after next Friday evening. We hope it'll go on for another week after, at least into the final. But it's great to have clarity. It is in us at 7:30 on this day week. and it's a game to really, really look forward to. And we've been waiting for months for this one. Now, without wanting to start talking about it in depth until next week, played when it should have been played, Jack. Limerick would have had the distinct advantage of having played Cork and Tipperary and beaten them, and going in against the Galway side that had played no game. But now that there has been such a long layoff, it levels the playing field considerably. The talk is that Galway are very good. The talk was that Cork were very good. The talk that was Tipperary were very good. But it's Limerick that's in the All-Ireland semi-final. So I know we'll be talking about it more next week. But just talking on a little aside on those unfinished 2020 championships, Dublin caused a bit of a surprise the other night when they beat Galway in the Leinster final 120 to 118. And the goal was scored by Mark Sweeney of St. Vincent's, who has very, very close Limerick connections, in that his mother, Anne Farrell, is from Kilfinnan.
No, I think that's a perfect way to finish the podcast. The memory man does it again, a bit like Jimmy McGee. I couldn't even think of myself. I think I grew up with Jimmy McGee, the memory man, but it's Matt O'Callaghan now. I think that's all for this weekend. I'm going to go on a limb and say that's all for this weekend. As I said, the footballers are in action on Saturday at 3 o'clock on GA Go. The senior Camogie side at 7:15 on Saturday evening in Dungarvan. And then we have the minor Camogie side on Monday against Tipperary in the Munster Championship. And we have the two...
Camogie's in Walsh Park, Jack.
Walsh Park, sorry, Walsh Park. And we also have the two minor football finals tonight. The Gaelic Crowns is hosting the Premier final, and the A final team Adair, South Liberties Crocora, is on in Bruff. I think I'm good.
Final mention, Jack, just a final mention where bragging rights will be of paramount importance this evening. The South Junior B football final between near neighbours and arch rivals Bannog and Camogie Rovers takes place at Bannog at 7:30 p.m. And spare a thought for Stevie Lyons. He plays hurling with Camogie and he plays football with Bannog. So he'll be playing against his hurling teammates this evening.
No, there's another
he's the brother of referee Paddy Lyons.
There's another piece of trivia. Best luck to all the teams in action this weekend. Hopefully we can get a couple of Limerick victories. Obviously next weekend we'll have the senior hurling, the minor hurling to look forward to. We'll hopefully have a Munster semi-final in football and a Munster final in Camogie to look forward to. But again, many thanks to you, Matt, for your undoubted knowledge, and we look forward to a positive weekend for Limerick GA.
Thanks, Jack.
The impression again we get out with what you put into it. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Johnny Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word court today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.